Welcome to the briefing room. Happy Monday. Great to have you with us. Well, President Trump is flying back to the United States right now from the G7 summit. And after a summer of diplomatic whiplash, tit-for-tat threats against his rivals, the president today left that summit in France on an optimistic, conciliatory note. He said he has great unity with his allies, productive talks with China on those trade and tariff fights, and even admitted possibly the likelihood, the president said, that he could have a direct face-to-face negotiation with Iran.
Thank you, Mr. President. President Macron said he'd like to see talks between you and President Rouhani within weeks. Does that sound realistic to you? Could you see yourself in talks with the Iranians within weeks?
Well, it does. I don't know the gentleman. I think I know him a little bit just by watching over the last number of years what's happened. Tell you one thing, he's a great negotiator. But I think he's going to want to meet. I think Iran wants to get this situation straightened out. Now, is that based on fact or based on gut? That's based on gut. But they want to get their situation straightened out, Jonathan. And they're really hurting badly. Their inflation, as you know, because I saw you reporting on it, their inflation is through the roof. Their economy is tanked entirely. The sanctions are absolutely hurting them horribly. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see that. They're great people. I don't want to see that. But we can't let them have a nuclear weapon. Can't let it happen. So I think that there's a really good chance that we would meet.
And our chief national correspondent, Terry Moran, is here. Connor Finnegan joins us from the State Department. And Terry, a lot of tea leaves here to indicate that this is the closest we could be to seeing President Trump actually meet face-to-face with the Iranians.
Well, and that would be amazing. No U.S. president has done so since the Iranian Revolution in 1979. And Trump would like that show. This is a president who likes those kinds of firsts, likes them on the world stage. But this is also, by now, the Trump playbook, right? The hammer comes down, right? Fire and fury against North Korea, the breaking of the Iran nuclear deal,
sending those ships into the Gulf.
Right,
just a few months ago.
Everything, and basically then the art of the deal begins. It seems like the opening bid of a Trump negotiation is always, "I'm going to destroy you."
And the Iranians, though, do seem to be responding a little bit to this. The foreign minister making a surprise appearance in France. He's, of course, not part of the G7, but showed up in an Iranian jet. And Connor Finnegan, the Iranian president, Hassan Rouhani, is actually answering President Trump now, a short time ago, putting out a statement saying, we have to negotiate to solve our problem with the United States. I would not hesitate attending a meeting and meeting someone if I know our people's problems are solved. What matters the most is our national interest. What are you hearing over there at the State Department? Could we be seeing something afoot in a matter of weeks?
Yeah, that's right, Devin. And Iran has previously expressed no interest whatsoever in meeting with President Trump. Ayatollah Khamenei has said that Trump is not trustworthy or genuine in his outreach towards Iran. And so those comments today could present a new opening for the administration if they do want to sit down with President Rouhani. He'll actually be in New York at the UN General Assembly in a matter of weeks, and so will President Trump. And the two leaders could meet face-to-face for the first time then. We've heard, though, from Iran that they are not willing to negotiate on certain things. And I think that's the issue now is what could they get in the room and actually talk about? Iran has previously said that they have no interest in negotiations on their ballistic missile program. But we heard from President Trump today that that was one of three things he actually wanted to deal with. He said Iran could not have nuclear weapons, no ballistic missile program, and he wanted to actually extend some of the timelines of the Iran nuclear deal. You know, that's really in contrast to so much of what his administration has said to date. His Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo, laid out a list of 12 demands for Iran in a speech last May. President Trump made no mention of any of those except, again, those 3 points. And so in the coming weeks, as Terry said, this could be an opening bid for negotiations with Iran, but it's a matter of what will his advisors tell him he's actually allowed to negotiate on and what he'll want to do.
And he even seemed to surprise people, Terry, by suggesting an openness to potentially extending or supporting the extension of a line of credit to Iran. This is somebody who has railed against President Obama's opening up of financial aid to Iran. Here he says, the president says today, maybe as part of talks, we could do that.
A line of credit based on Iranian oil sales. And certainly that is a major sweetener to the prospect for talks. I covered the Iran nuclear deal in Vienna, in Switzerland, all all over the place. That was an excruciatingly difficult deal to accomplish. And you hear what Connor's talking about. We have major problems with Iran, a dangerous regional power that nevertheless has some cards to play. Getting to yes on both sides took years under President Obama. In some ways, it seems President Trump wanted to get rid of that deal because it was the Obama nuclear deal. And I think what we're seeing here is that this is really the Emmanuel Macron plan, right? President Trump can dominate the headlines. He is less and less dominating world events. He's being brought along or just ignored on climate change, for example. But on this, Macron says, OK, you aren't going to be able to do the whole thing at once. Maybe you can do something short term. Iran can ratchet down its uranium enrichment. The United States can open the spigot for some money, and we'll at least get the tensions down and talks going forward.
Yeah, certainly the French president in the spotlight today, sort of leading President Trump towards the table with Iran, was remarkable. There was also a lot of talk at this summit about China hanging over the entire global economy. The French president says uncertainty between Donald Trump and President Xi is really crushing markets. But Terry, the president today, as he has been for the past week, has been dialing back, peddling back this idea that the war with China could go on forever, seeming to suggest that talks are going very well right now.
Well, and the Chinese tell a different story.
That's
they're
right.
willing to talk, but they're not right now. And that once again raises the question, who's driving events? President Trump or President Xi? Actually, we call him Chairman Xi because he's not really a president. But it's because China has patience. They're willing to take this pain, and they're willing to wait out until the 2020 election, something the president and his team did not expect, which is why you see this kind of flailing around a little bit by President Trump as he realizes he's up against a very tough adversary that's not going to be a pushover.
He sure is, and some confusion over where those talks stand now as we head towards September 1st and ratcheting up of tariffs. Connor, back to you. One big takeaway from this summit for those who follow these things as closely as you do, there was no grand agreement among U.S. allies, no communique. And in fact, the signature issue of the G7 European leaders, climate change, the president was absent from today. He skipped that meeting.
Yeah, that's right. President Trump didn't even attend the session on climate change. The White House said that was because he had previously scheduled meetings, although there was time initially on his schedule for them. I had heard from a diplomatic source before this summit even began that they had no intention of trying to join all these countries together in a joint communique. That proved especially difficult last year in Canada, President Trump blowing up at the last minute and refusing to sign the joint communique over important issues like climate change and trade. And so going into this summit, the French weren't even preparing for a joint statement because they thought it would be too hard to get Trump to the table. They knew that they weren't going to change his mind on something like climate change, even as it continues to dominate the headlines and grab the world's attention with the fires in the Amazon and the melting of the ice caps in Greenland.
And Terry, finally, before we let you go, there was a sub-headline in all this today as the president was wrapping up his trip to France. He was asked about next year's G7 summit, which will be here in the United States, in Miami, of all places. And the president gave a huge pitch for his resort. This summit of world leaders is going to be held at Doral. What about the propriety of that? A lot of people raising some questions.
There are people raising constitutional questions. The Constitution prohibits presidents, federal officers from accepting emoluments, gifts from foreign powers. People say, well, maybe if they're paying hotel bills, that's a gift, that's a court case. But really, the propriety goes beyond law. Is it really the right thing to turn world leaders into your customers? Even if you run a nice hotel, and I assume he does. There's just something sort of tone deaf about that a little bit. And I'd like to say one more thing about the world leaders. If you saw that, the picture of the world leaders lined up there, President Trump is standing next to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau of Canada. Trudeau's doctors say he is 6'2" tall. President Trump claims he's 6'3" tall, but in that picture, anyway, it looks like Justin Trudeau's about an inch taller than President Trump.
There it is. There it is again. We can see it on full display. The pictures don't lie. Terry Moran, thank you so much. Our chief national correspondent, Connor Finnegan at the State Department, thanks so much to you. Well, back here at home now, there's a growing public health crisis in Newark, New Jersey, just across the river from New York City, where the water system there has been showing dangerous levels of lead for months now. City officials announced announced today an infusion of $120 million to replace 18,000 water pipes to people's homes in that community. It's a major development. It will take several years, but it's not yet satisfying the calls to more immediate action by activists in that community. One of those joins us now. Yvette Jordan is with the Newark Water Coalition. Yvette, it's great to see you. So give us your take on what the city announced today in terms of replacing 18,000 water leads. Big step?
My initial take is that it is something very, very good and something Newark Water Coalition is fighting for, as well as New Caucus, for which I am a part. New Caucus is actually the plaintiff in a federal lawsuit against City of Newark. So I'm a member of that. So we are very happy about $120 million. However, we have some concerns also, Devin.
Yeah, tell me about those concerns, because it's going to take still, the officials today said, 2 to 3 years to begin replacing these pipes. It had been estimated at 10 years, so they're trying to expedite that process. But you and your organization have been demanding bottled water from officials to all of the city's 200,000+ residents. Have you made any headway on that front?
We've gotten some bottled water from city and state government, as well as many donations, and that's great. It's just initially in our lawsuit, we were saying we wanted filters and bottled water for everybody in all service areas. So our concern now, while we're happy about lead service line replacement, and it's obviously fast-tracked, we are also concerned about enforcement of that. So considering several concerns, which have been highlighted, including New York Times article on Sunday, we're concerned about management of lead service line replacement. So again, I want to underscore, we are very happy about $120 million. However, how are you managing it? How are you enforcing it? Is somebody who has a lot of management experience doing that? Or is it somebody who is an engineer? So all of these concerns are on our mind.
Yeah, and much like the Flint water crisis of a few years ago, which was a slow unfolding crisis that required a lot of accountability from citizens like yourself, demanding officials keep them honest. That city endured some very serious medical crises, specifically in children. I'm curious, in the city of Newark, how concerned are you about the health impacts of this water that has been consumed now for many years prior to today's announcement?
I'm very concerned, and initially when NRDC approached us in February of 2018, meaning approached New Caucus, we as educators were saying, of course, we've got to step up and do something, and we said, okay, we'll sign on as plaintiffs. Myself, I'm a school teacher. I'm a high school teacher at Central High School in Newark, and almost 1/3 of our population is special needs. So while I'm not attributing all of this, of course, to water, I am concerned it is one of many contaminants. And in terms of ADD, ADHD, and a myriad of other concerns, we as educators are saying we've got to step up and really protect our students and their families.
We know you'll keep your voices raised. Yvette Jordan with the Newark Water Coalition, as authorities today announced some big steps to improve the water quality in that city. We know you will keep the pressure on as that goes forward. Yvette, thank you so much for coming in.
Okay, thank you.
Well, we're 2.5 weeks now from the third Democratic primary debate. That's the ABC News Univision debate that will be held in Houston, Texas. And we're just 3 days away now from the cutoff to qualify for that debate. The stakes are very high. And our political director, Rick Klein, who has been overseeing the whole operation, joins us now from New York. Rick, great to see you.
Hey, Devin.
Welcome back from vacation. So we've got 10 candidates so far on the docket for the debate in 2.5 weeks' time. Remind everybody what the new qualifications are and who's on the bubble.
to make a debate in September and October, you need to get 2% in 4 qualifying polls as defined by the Democratic National Committee and be able to certify 130,000 unique donations spread across the states. So that is a significantly higher bar. For the first 2 debates, you needed to just get 1% in 4 polls or 65,000 donations. That resulted, of course, as we know, 20 candidates spread across 2 nights. This time it is a lot tougher. And among the candidates right now that are on the outside looking in, Senator Kirsten Gillibrand, Congressman Tulsi Gabbard, and the billionaire Tom Steyer. They are kind of the next wave in. In addition to that, you've got others like Tim Ryan and Marianne Williamson, who realistically do not have an opportunity, do not look likely to qualify for this debate.
So we could potentially have half the field of the Detroit debate on stage in this next round. That's pretty significant. A lot of people wondering, Rick, do candidates that don't get on the debate stage in September with ABC, do they basically have to drop out?
No, and in fact, because you've got another debate a month later, they've got some incentive to stick around for a while longer. The way the DNC has structured this, they're opening up the window. So if you have 2 or 3 qualifying polls now, you have another month to get that 4th poll before the October debate. But it does make the money dry up. It's difficult for a candidate who doesn't make a debate stage to catch on. We saw that with the recognition from Seth Moulton, the congressman from Massachusetts who dropped out last week. It's been difficult for others to catch on. And of course, it's a marking point. If you're not able to get on that debate stage, how can you make that argument that you are the one that is worth having money spent on? So I do think they'll have another chance come October, but from what we've been told, we'd expect that the criteria gets only tougher from there.
And if this field does grow bigger than 10, Rick, for the next ABC debate in a couple weeks, how will ABC divide that up? Will we see 2 nights of debate? Will we see a bigger stage on a single night? Remind everybody how this will play out.
Under the guidelines set forth by the DNC, 11 or more candidates would be spread between 2 nights. 10 would be all on one night on Thursday, September 12th. So as of now, it is 10 candidates and 1 night, but there's about 48 hours left for additional candidates to qualify under the DNC criteria.
All right, 48 hours left. We did get a new poll today. I want to talk to you about that, Rick. It's the new Monmouth University poll, national poll. There were, we should say, no new qualifiers for the ABC debate coming out of this poll, but a very interesting development in this single survey's snapshot of the electorate nationwide in terms of the horse race. Take a look at this on the left side of your screen. Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren, Joe Biden, all clustered at the top. Rick, this is the first time in any national poll, as far as I can remember, in this campaign, that Joe Biden has had to share the lead at the top of a national poll.
It is quite a scramble, and we should offer the caveat, Devin, that other national polls that went out in this similar time frame had a more significant lead for Joe Biden. However, it is significant to note if you have a 3-headed frontrunner status, that is a much different portrait of the race. And the idea that Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, 2 proud members of the progressive movement, 2 of the furthest left of the Democratic candidates, would together account for some 40% of the electorate, that is significant as well. There are a whole lot of Bernie supporters that think that Warren's people are there for him to grab, and vice versa for Warren supporters who think they can cut into some of Bernie's support. So this is an indication of a potential trend that we may see down the road of Biden's softening numbers. But Biden's own pollster was out on Twitter just moments ago, Devin, making point that this is an outlier poll, and that if you look more generally at polls that have been out in the last couple of weeks, you continue to see a double-digit-ish lead for Joe Biden.
Yeah, that's for sure. It's a great reminder to everybody that this is simply one poll among many, and it's very early at that. Do want to ask you about one last little aspect of this poll, Rick, on the topic of issues, health care, front and center in this debate. The last debate in Detroit, of course, centered on the topic of health care, Medicare for all. 2 data points in this survey sort of caught my eye. I want to get your take on it. The first one is Democrats and Democratic-leaning voters' preference. A large majority say they prefer having Medicare for all as part of a candidate's platform. You see it here on the screen. 58% of Democrats say they want their candidate to back Medicare for all. But the flip side in this survey, sort of a split result, mixed picture here, said that a lot of those people actually also support keeping private insurance. How do you reconcile those two?
Well, you can't as a policy item. Medicare for all means you don't have private insurance. insurance anymore, that everyone goes through Medicare, a single payer option through the government. I think you reconcile it by recognizing that the catchwords that people use, whether you call it Medicare for all or private insurance, whatever way you use to label a policy program, doesn't fully encapsulate what it means. And I think we've seen that play out in the previous debates, where you have candidates wrangling over whether you have to blow up Obamacare or build on Obamacare. And the difference is really at the margins. All of the candidates are substantially to the left of even Barack Obama when it comes to expanding health care coverage. So I don't think that Democratic primary voters appear to have fully understood or fully educated themselves on the intricacies of these policy programs.
And we have a long way to go. Rick Klein on the tip of the spear here at ABC News, political director. Thanks so much, Rick. We'll be talking to you much more later this week as we get closer to the cutoff for the third Democratic primary debate, which you can watch right here on ABC News Live on September 12th. Well, as election season gets closer, here in the briefing room, we are keeping track of creative ways that America's young people are trying to sign up and register new voters. One of those caught our eye this week, making its way through the crispy chicken sandwich line at Popeyes. North Carolina high school senior, 17-year-old David Ledbetter has been out registering people to vote in those, and we've all seen them, those long viral lines to get the new Popeyes chicken sandwich. A lot of stores sold out. David joins us now from North Carolina. David, it's great to see you. So how did you get the idea to do this? What's been the reaction as you've been working those drive-through lines to get people to register?
Yeah, so it all started when we seen the abundant amount of people just lined up at Popeyes just to try the new chicken sandwich. And so I was working on Stephanie Snead's campaign, trying to get engaged with the community. And we came up with the idea of bringing voter registration to the lines at Popeyes. And so it was a pretty awesome experience in engaging with those individuals in the line.
Were people pretty receptive to it while they were waiting to place their order?
Yes, sir. A lot of individuals had already been registered, so that was nice to know. But we managed to register a lot of individuals when we was out there. So yeah, it was very nice.
You're a high school senior going into your senior year there in Charlotte. How did you get inspired to take this on? And I know you're getting ready to place your first ballot in a presidential election next November, but why take this on?
So I was really just trying to be more engaged with the community. And also I had an amazing supporting team with Stephanie Snead's campaign. And so we just wanted to engage more with the community. And, you know, it was very fun and it was very good.
A future in politics for you, David Ledbetter, after you go to college?
It's a possibility. I don't know. I'm not sure as of now.
All right. All right. I got to ask you before we let you go, did you try the chicken sandwich? Everybody's talking about it. How is it?
Yeah, I tried it, and I will say that it is better than Chick-fil-A. You have my humble opinion. It is.
All right. David Ledbetter from Charlotte, North Carolina. We salute you. Great effort there. Creative take on registering voters for the 2020 and 2019 election. Thanks so much for coming in, David.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And before we sign off today, we are taking note of Supreme Court Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, who we told you about last week, recently underwent 3 weeks of radiation therapy for a localized malignant tumor on her pancreas. Well, today, for the first time since that treatment, Ruth Bader Ginsburg made a public appearance in upstate New York at the University of Buffalo. She received an honorary degree and also poked fun at that nickname she has, the Notorious RBG.
It was beyond my wildest imagination that I would one day become the Notorious RBG. I am now 86 years old, yet people of all ages want to take their picture with me. Amazing.
Amazing indeed. Amazing she's back in public so soon after that cancer treatment. Ruth Bader Ginsburg expected back on the bench when the court reconvenes in just a month's time here in Washington, D.C. for yet another term. We salute her for being back in public. We salute you for watching us here on ABC News Live this afternoon in the briefing room. We're here every day, 3:30 p.m. Eastern Time, 5:30 and 6:30 as well. We'll be here all week in the lead up to Labor Day holiday. Hope you join us. I'm Devin Dwyer in Washington. Hope to see you tomorrow.